Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at Donghua, and specifically how Donghua has been influenced by ancient Chinese philosophies.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll be taking a look at Taoism and Buddhism and how these ideas work their way into these really cool stories about cultivators and things like enlightenment and immortality.
Yeah, and even dimensional ascension.
Yeah, dimensional ascension.
It's a really interesting way to think about, like, reaching higher realms of existence, and Donghua just makes it so visually compelling and exciting.
It really does. So before we get into all that, maybe we could start with the basics. What exactly do we mean when we say cultivation?
Okay, so cultivation in Taoism and Buddhism, that's really about self-improvement.
Yeah, okay.
It's a journey of spiritual growth. So in Taoism, it's all about harmonizing with the Tao, that natural order of the universe.
Right.
And they have all these practices like Wu Wei, which is kind of like effortless action. And it's all about helping individuals achieve balance so they can transcend their limitations.
Okay, so it's not just about...
And one Donghua that comes to mind is A Will Eternal. The protagonist by Shao Chun, he starts out kind of like more focused on alchemy than, the traditional martial arts. But his whole journey really embodies that idea of following your own path to enlightenment.
That's cool. So what about Buddhism then? How does cultivation work in that context?
Well, in Buddhism, cultivation is more focused on freeing yourself from suffering.
Okay.
It's about ending desire, and breaking free from samsara, that cycle of death and rebirth, to ultimately reach nirvana, which is the state of like pure enlightenment and peace.
Okay.
And a good example of that is Soul Land. The main character, Tang San, he's actually reincarnated with memories of his past life.
Oh, wow.
So his journey isn't just about like developing his soul power, but it's also about letting go of those attachments to reach that higher state of being.
So both paths are about transcending limitations. They approach it in different ways. Yeah. And of course, we can't forget about dimensional ascension, which just sounds
mind-blowing.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
Right.
So how does Donghua actually portray something like that?
So in Donghua dimensions, they're not just like physical places.
Right.
They're like stages of spiritual evolution.
Okay.
Like, for example, in stellar transformations, reaching a higher dimension might give you the ability to manipulate time, or even like exist as pure energy.
That's intense.
It is. And the main character, Qin Yu, starts off as this like ordinary boy, but as he cultivates, he goes through these amazing transformations as he breaks through to those higher dimensions.
It's kind of like leveling up in a video game, but on a cosmic scale.
Exactly. And it's not just about power.
Right.
It's about like expanding your consciousness and how you understand reality.
Yeah, it's getting pretty deep here.
Yeah.
And one thing I always find fascinating is how Donghua handles this whole idea of immortality. Is it always like the end goal of cultivation?
Well, a lot of times, yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of reflects both those Taoist and Buddhist philosophies.
Okay.
But it's not always simple,
Right.
Like, Donghua doesn't shy away from showing all the, struggles and challenges and moral dilemmas that cultivators face on that path.
Yeah. What are some of the different motivations for wanting to be immortal? I mean, is it always just about, like, living forever, or is there something more to it?
Yeah, there's definitely more to it. And different Donghua explore this in different ways. For example, Martial Peak shows the main character, Yang Kai, and he's like relentlessly pursuing power.
Okay.
But it also shows all the sacrifices he has to make and the challenges that come with dedicating your life to cultivation.
So it's not just about achieving immortality, but also about understanding the consequences that might come with it.
And the dilemmas that you might face.
It's like Donghua gives us this space to think about those big existential questions.
Yeah.
But in these really engaging worlds.
Exactly. It makes you think.
It really does.
Yeah, and it's not always easy, No, definitely
not.
Like there's this Donghua called Against the Gods, and it really shows how cultivators have to overcome these huge obstacles. The main character, Ni Lai, he starts off really weak, actually.
Oh, wow.
And he keeps facing setbacks, but he's got this knowledge from his past life.
Oh, interesting.
About all these cultivation techniques.
Okay.
So he uses that to kind of like defy fate and go beyond his limits.
That's so cool. It's inspiring to see these characters who start with nothing and they work so hard to reach the top.
Yeah, it really shows you what people are capable of.
Yeah.
And it's not all about physical strength either.
Right.
Cultivators, they have to deal with mental and emotional challenges too.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like they have to face their inner demons and make tough choices and sometimes even sacrifice relationships to achieve their goals.
There's a scene in Full-Time Magister that comes to mind.
Yeah.
It's where the main character, Mo Fan, has to choose between saving his sister and protecting his city.
That's a tough one.
It is. And it's those kinds of dilemmas that make you really connect with the characters.
Well, even though it's a fantastical setting, it's still about the human experience.
Exactly. Speaking of fantastical stuff, I gotta say the visual spectacle in Donghua is just amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
Like all the elemental powers and the gravity-defying stunts.
Yeah, it's like a mix of martial arts and sci-fi.
It's so cool. And Donghua blends those genres so well.
They really do. Like the fight scenes are incredible.
Yeah.
They really showcase the skill and power of the cultivators. And then you also have these quieter moments where they're like contemplating life and stuff.
Right. It's that mix of action and philosophy that makes it so interesting.
And you can't forget the humor.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a really important part of Donghua.
Some of my favorite moments are just those funny interactions between the characters.
Right. Like the banter and the jokes.
Yeah. It makes the stories feel more relatable.
Yeah. It adds that human touch.
And speaking of human touch, we can't forget about romance.
Oh, yeah. Romance is huge in Donghua.
It adds so much emotion to the stories.
And it can be really complicated, especially when you're dealing with immortality.
Right. Like imagine falling in love with someone who could live forever.
Yeah. And you're just a regular human.
It makes you think about love and commitment and sacrifice in a whole new way.
Yeah, it really does.
It's like Donghua gives us this platform to explore these huge questions about life.
And those relationships can be really powerful too. Like they can inspire characters to grow stronger and overcome obstacles.
And even like shape the fate of entire worlds.
Exactly.
That's what I love about Donghua. It's not just about escaping reality. It's about understanding what it means to be human.
And it does it in a way that's so visually stunning and action-packed and thought-provoking.
I feel like we've covered so much ground already.
Yeah, we have.
But I'm really excited to get into some specific examples of Donghua that really bring these themes to life.
Yeah, let's dive into some specifics.
Okay, so let's talk about some specific Donghua series. What are some that really stand out to you?
Well, one that comes to mind right away is Battle Through the Heavens.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it follows this guy, Xiaoyan. He's like a prodigy at first, but then he loses his powers.
Oof, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, he faces a lot of humiliation and ridicule, but eventually he starts this intense cultivation journey to get his strength back.
So it's like a comeback story.
Exactly. And he eventually becomes this legendary duty.
A duty? What's that?
It's basically like a super powerful cultivator at the top of the cultivation world.
Wow. So he goes from zero to hero.
Pretty much. And the way they show the different cultivation levels is really cool.
Yeah, how does that work?
Each level brings new challenges and abilities, and it's like he's constantly pushing his limits.
It sounds like it ties into that whole dimensional ascension thing we were talking about.
Exactly. As he climbs those levels, he's basically moving through different dimensions of power and understanding.
That's a cool way to visualize it.
And another series that does dimensional travel really well is Swallowed Star.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
So the main character, Luo Feng, he starts on Earth.
Okay.
But he eventually goes beyond the limits of his planet.
Whoa.
And he travels into space. He encounters all these alien civilizations.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he battles cosmic beings across multiple dimensions.
It sounds epic.
It is. And it still ties into cultivation because his journey through space is also a journey of self-discovery.
Right. So he's growing as a person while he's exploring the universe.
Exactly. He's always pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
That's a great theme. We've talked a lot about power and immortality.
Right.
But are there any Donghua that focus more on the philosophical side of things?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation.
Okay, what's that one about?
It explores some really complex themes like good versus evil, the nature of justice, and what happens when you go against societal norms.
Sounds intense.
It is. So the main character, Wei Wuxian, he gets ostracized for his cultivation methods.
What's wrong with his methods?
Well, they're considered demonic. Yeah. So his story really makes you think about prejudice and the price of power.
Wow. It's like Donghua can tackle some pretty heavy stuff.
Right, but it does it in a way that's still really entertaining.
Right, and the animation style itself can be so meaningful.
Absolutely, like the way they use color and symbolism and movement.
Yeah.
It all adds to the storytelling.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
I agree.
We've covered so much ground.
From ancient philosophies to incredible worlds.
And we've seen characters achieve amazing things.
Yeah, it really makes you think about human potential.
I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for Donghua now.
Me too. And we've only just scratched the surface.
Right. There's so much more out there to discover.
Exactly. Each Donghua series offers its own unique perspective on cultivation, immortality, and what it means to be human.
So to our listener, if you're interested in what you've heard today,
yeah, definitely check out some Donghua.
You might be surprised by what you find. Epic adventures, stunning visuals, complex characters.
Thought-provoking themes.
Who knows, maybe you'll be inspired to start your own journey of self-discovery.
That's the beauty of Donghua. It opens up a world of possibilities.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
And keep exploring.